It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Aamir Ehsan, who is a board-certified molecular geneticist in San Antonio. He is the CEO and medical director of CorePath. He's also served as faculty at UT San Antonio. Dr. Ehsan has helped set up the genetics lab at his alma mater, Dow Medical College. It's my privilege to introduce Dr. Ehsan. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, and assalamu alaikum. Thank you, APPNA, and thank you for the CME committee for the invitation. Thank you, Dr. Junaid, for giving me the opportunity to go before artificial intelligence. So I think it's going to sync nicely with the molecular topic that I'll be discussing along with AI. So basically, it's a big topic, covering in 20 minutes. So the audience is very diverse. I'll try to make it more relevant to you. I have a more fun part to do after this, to attend the general body meeting of Dow Medical College. So I'll be here for a couple more minutes right after this lecture. So basically, this is a slide illustrating how simple two undergrad kids are going to decide to go major and take Chinese versus molecular biology. And let's do it together because molecular biology is very simple, only 4 or 5 letters. Not realizing how challenging and how complex it can be just based on 4 or 5 letters. So on the top, I'm saying that even though there are only 4 letters, there are about 3 billion base pairs of genomic profile, which is present in our DNA. And DNA, when it comes to genotype and phenotype, it's very different. You may have a genetic profile, but you may not act phenotypically what you have, and vice versa. I put the picture here for chimpanzees or monkeys, how similar we are. We are 99% similar to chimpanzees. Some people are 100% compatible though. Just kidding, thank you. So this is a very brief summary of all goes on into the genomic medicine based on our medical school knowledge that we have, that it all starts with simple DNA transcription going into RNA, and RNA making a protein. So as a science, as a physician, we know that we would like to identify the protein at the basic level. So once we know the protein, we can have the reverse engineering and look into the DNA and the breakpoints and things like that. So the goal has been to identify a protein which can be targeted and can be maneuvered or can be manipulated in different ways we want as a scientist. This is the slide that shows how the application of genomic medicine is. So I kind of broadly divided into 4 different components. And as you can see here, the top one is solid tumor. The second one are mostly leukemias and lymphomas. The third one are inherited genetic defects. The fourth one is overall infectious diseases. And the last one, of course, is pharmacogenomics. What are we trying to achieve here? In our lifetime, I see some of the folks here have been relatively younger in the audience and have seen the Watson and Crick DNA molecule that was discovered back in 1953. We have seen the Nobel Prize given to Carey Mullis back in 1993, who introduced the concept of the PCR when he was driving on a highway in California and saw this benzene ring kind of coming in front of him. And now we have next generation sequencing, commonly called NGS, which just started like 2 years ago, that has pretty much revolutionized the concept of medicine. So we divide our answers, or the answers that we are trying to look at into, is it really going to affect any prediction? Can I predict certain diseases? It is really important to make a solid diagnosis based on the genome profile, how it's going to be affecting treatment. That's really the bottom line. And what is going to be the prognosis for our patients. So based on those 4 or 5 questions, keeping the audience in mind, I just kind of give you more high-level view rather than going into the detail and depth of genetic. Breast cancer and lung cancer belong to the solid tumor. And knowing the BRCA1, BRCA2, and knowing the prognosis of lung cancer have improved based on different targeted treatment and different genomic profile, which is becoming a standard of care. CML, we all know that Philadelphia chromosome is the example disease there. We have had like a couple of our own class fellows and colleagues who has died because of CML when we were in medical school. Now, if you look at the CML, the prognosis has been excellent, and patients have been, living relatively normal life. AML, the 15-17 translocation, this is a couple of translocations that lead to treatment of ATRA, which is just a heavy dose of vitamin A. What it does is just, convert or change the cellular differentiation into more mature cells. So the more and more genomic alteration we understand, we see their pathogenesis and the treatment can be modified and be more effective. And the last one is ALL. You have seen a lot of pediatric cases dying of leukemias back then, and now most of the ALLs, if they have the right genotype, are pretty much curable. So I'm just going to give you very high level again of the key departments that we work in, or the key fields that we work in. Pediatrics, it has been becoming very common to look for different germline mutations and inborn error or metabolism based on the next generation sequencing. It's really becoming, a standard of care, and there are hundreds and hundreds of these genetic disorders that we have missed in the past. For GI, the concept of Lynch syndrome, now we are seeing more and more Lynch syndrome patients based on the profile. The GIST tumor has a certain mutation. The colorectal cancer has so many mutations that had been affecting prognosis as well as treatment. Liquid biopsy concept is definitely there. Rather than patient having colorectal cancer and have a repeat CT or MRI, there is definitely a role of liquid biopsy looking at the blood, in the blood, both the RNA and DNA expression profile, and that can predict early molecular relapse. So for people who are practicing cardiology, there is definitely a role of looking at different mutations for cardiomyopathy, atherosclerosis, different QT syndromes, and being just a metabolizer of different actions like slow and versus fast. For family medicine, people ask, well, why family medicine? No, it's going to affect family medicine and general practitioner as well. Patients are becoming very smart. They are going to be asking a lot of questions, and I think we need to be very much prepared if you want to keep the patients with you, rather than being constantly sent out to genetic counselors. We need to be prepared for taking the history and do the appropriate screening test for these patients. We need to be prepared to be doing the counseling based on the data. And we also need to be prepared that who are the right people and who are the right field to be referring these patients to. Because the GI versus GYN versus oncology versus anything else, you can be referring these patients to respective fields. Surgery, surgeons are not spared by the genetic medicine. And it's definitely, there are fields that people, or the subjects or the courses that the surgeons are being asked and requested to do the counseling certification and stuff. There are a lot of diseases that are definitely impacting based on the inheritance and the family tendency. And rather than going and taking the lumpectomy or the biopsy and stuff, we need to be, as a surgeon, need to be aware of background and the genetic makeup of these patients when it comes to breast cancer, colorectal cancer, thyroid, and prostate, and this is just a limited list. Even anesthesiology, the fast metabolizers and the slow metabolizers, you don't want to be caught by surprise. This does not mean that we need to be doing genetic profile on all the patients, but careful history is really goes a long way. And there are going to be time that there is going to be a time that a certain limited profile is going to be offered eventually in such patients or in this discipline. Psychiatry, Now we are seeing that there are some linkage with genetic profile when it comes to common diseases like what I have listed, autism and ADHD, and so on and so forth. So there is definitely not only social, there has been family, not only family history, but genetic makeup of certain patients. OB-GYN, this is not the typical time that we are practicing OB-GYN in. There is a lot of genetic testing being performed for prenatal testing. I think we are experiencing the NGS studies being done in those patients. Reproductive genetics is also becoming very interesting topic of discussion. And just the gynecological cancer of different sites has endometrium or ovary. The more we know and the more study we perform, we realize there is not only one organ which is involved, but there are multiple sites involved as well. Pathology. I'm a pathologist, and at the end of the day, that's the common pathway. All the data belong in pathology, all the clinical trial R&D, and most of our residents and medical students are not very well trained, even these days, into looking at this data from as a scientist point of view, and of course linking that with artificial intelligence and other discussion that we'll be having later. So data integration is the key in pathology with all these genomic profile, education, and being abreast with the technology. We know even now students who are graduating have very limited knowledge of molecular genetics. The field is definitely exploding and it's very much overwhelming. The NCCN guidelines are continuously evolving. Every month, every week, you will see new drugs, new mutation, new FDA approval, new clinical trials, and a lot of hope for patients are out there. And then the whole concept of tissue banking and biobanking is definitely that it depends upon the field is very critical for future. And of course, every hospital, every facility is being constrained by these budgets for these testing and stuff like that, which is not, all the time pre-approved. So science is way ahead than we all know that, than the insurance companies and the business side of it. We need to be advocate for whatever is right for the patient, whatever is medical necessity, but we all are kind of overwhelmed with this concept of pre-authorization. And the American Society of Clinical Oncology has been doing an active campaign through the legislation to address pre-authorization, not only for diagnostic side, but as well as treatment and so on. This is my last slide, and I'll conclude here, is when one of my son, who was a recent graduate from UT Austin, when he was admitted like 4 years ago, the dean of the UT Medicine said that these kids who are being admitted today, and by the time they are going to be retiring, those jobs are not even identified yet, right? So the point he was trying to make was we need to be ready to adapt and adopt. And the concept I'm trying to convey, or the message I'm trying to convey here, is we all have seen the department store, which is Sears, which used to have like 1% GDP of the US. Right, did not embrace the innovation and had been wiped out by Amazon. And Kodak was a name in every household, did not really embrace the innovation and has been replaced by, of course, the smartphones. And same thing as Blockbuster, again, the very common name in the household, had been replaced by Netflix. So I think the medical curriculum need to be looked at outside the box and see, are we really ready to prepare our future doctors, future scientists, and future physicians, not only from the genomic point of view, but as well as the next topic, which is the artificial intelligence. And I was happy and fortunate and delighted to launch the next generation sequencing technology in Pakistan, in Dow Medical School, which tells you that it's not only in United States that people are really adopting the new technology, and it's here. It's not even the future, it's the present. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ehsan. That was a fantastic talk. No, I understand that you said about curriculum here in the US that we need to adjust, but what about Pakistan, that you have done such great effort in creating the actual sequencing, but are we, as anyone, I don't know, possibly, adjusting our medical school curriculum in Pakistan?
I think definitely that's the next step, because one of the common comments that we received from Dow was why we are bringing a technology when we don't have treatment available for these, because they are very expensive. And the answer was there are so many other options of, inborn error of metabolism and common tumor like breast cancer, lung cancer, and common leukemias and lymphomas, where at least the prognosis and basic treatment is available. The next step, now the students are going to be seeing, and they'll be asking for electives and stuff like that, and the faculty is going to be seeing, yeah, definitely, I think there's an opportunity of at least starting offering electives and then becoming the core part of the curriculum.
Hi, unfortunately, I'm actually a now graduate of 2012, just answering you. When I graduated, it's a big difference in that curriculum. They have added, and a lot of it comes from him. I don't know whether he knows me, but I know him. So he's incorporated it, and now the curriculum has changed, and they are bringing the genetics into the study program, so that when you take your steps and the USMLE pathway, this is incorporated, and they can adapt to it, and based on that, maybe just pursue it as their career. So they're implementing back in Dow, and I think FNC is also part of it now. We're a home-based university, so I know at Dow that we have incorporated this in our curriculum.
Yeah, great to know. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Can I just ask quickly? So Saudi Arabia has a rule that you have to do genetic testing before you can get married. Now, what are and that's exactly, the testing one is one of those things, especially in low and middle-income countries or private, public, basically, healthcare benefit. What is the ethical implication, in your opinion, on that as a law to make sure that we have decreased birth defects because of massive screening genetic testing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Ethics also play a very big role here. I briefly work as a locum in Saudi Arabia, and I was signing out a lot of basic genetic hemoglobinopathies. And that's a very important step in the right direction, that you can avoid a lot of mortality just looking at a simple one. So I think as long as we target the high diagnostic yield that have a prediction of behaving certain ways, that is very important to be, in place. The challenge is on the ethics side and, of course, different countries. I received a text message just yesterday from Pakistan that there was a couple married, has one gene mutation in alpha side and one on the beta side, and was asked what your thoughts are. So it was very encouraging to see these kind of things coming from Pakistan as well. Thank you.
Just a quick question. A lot of people are doing this 23andMe and all these genetic tests, and there's a whole slew of things that you can click on. So, hemochromatosis, you name it. How do you funnel that into therapeutics, and is there any connection with those databases, and how do you design treatment options? Because this is massive.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. It's really a very hot question these days. So that's the reason I put the slide that when it comes to pre-authorization and approval and reimbursement and making sense, clinically useful, you typically follow those four things. Whatever test I'm doing, is it going to really affect my prediction of the disease? Am I going to make the accurate diagnosis? And am I going to have any treatment option or plan change, and how it's going to affect my prognosis? Otherwise, it's really overwhelming, and those are the four things that every physician needs to be evaluating these tests for.
My question is, before marriage, you said that they need to get the genetic testing done. So what are the particular diseases that encompass that?
For the sake of time, I'll just target not on genetics, but let's say example for thalassemias. Thalassemias, marriage consent guarantee and all those relationship and stuff. If we do simple tests like for hemoglobin electrophoresis and basic hemoglobin profile, we can prevent and avoid a lot of mortality and morbidity down the road. So we need to, or every country need to identify very high level impact that can have in the clinical care. We are already doing for the prenatal, right? For the common ones.
Exactly.
But if I would like to pick one, it would, in Pakistan, it would be definitely hemoglobinopathies.
And the financially, like insurances here in the US, are they covering these?
Yes, as long as they follow those 4 things: prognosis, treatment, diagnosis, and prediction, and it's a pain, we know that, pre-authorization, but it has been approved, for these tests, yes.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation, Dr. Ehsan. APPNA did start genetic lab at Brooklyn Medical College about 10 years ago, and I'm hoping that it's still functioning. Is there any plan to, or how can we extend your services to the other medical schools like APPNA network? I certainly would like to see some similar things, similar labs or services over there.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's a great question. We are all one family. We are here to support Pakistan back home. So now, after the Dow and SMC, more medical colleges are approaching, like what's the best way of doing it, and we'll be happy to help and use our collective intellect here. Thank you.
Any idea of what kind of cost for
Yeah, I'll be happy to share all those details. I think the most important thing is the human capital. How you train and bring them here for this very precise training. Money and those kind of things can come with donation, but it's really the human intellect and the talent that we can train them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ehsan. I know you have a pending meeting, so appreciate your time.